Hello everyone. Razorblade Mango here. And today I'm here to talk about my thoughts on one of the year's most anticipated games, high profile games, Bethesda's Starfield. So, there's a lot to talk about with Starfield. So, forgive me if my approach to this video is a little scattershot. And I have a confession up front, just so I get this out of the way. I did not complete some of the faction quests, and I did not complete the main quest for Starfield. Whether, if you think that discounts my opinion entirely, I kind of understand. I have put over 60 hours into Starfield at the time of recording this. The reason I'm here today is to just give an overview of why Starfield lost me. And Claylex and I had, we've talked about this for months before the game even came out, that we were going to do a spoiler cast discussion of it. That was one of the videos that I had planned for this year. There came a point where after, the both of us spent quite a bit of time with Starfield, we both took breaks from it. He went off to go play things like, Baldur's Gate 3, and he's a big Team Fortress 2 player. Me, I went off to play, just other things. I had like Spider-Man 2, I had Wonder coming up, and I reached out to him maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and I told him, hey, if we're still gonna do the spoiler cast, let's at least like finish the main story. Let's finish the faction quests, and then we can, talk about it from there. And he's like, great, sounds good. We had a little bit of time. But there came this point where the both of us kind of, not literally, because Clarence and I have never met in person. We kind of metaphorically kind of looked at each other and just thought, do we really want to do this? Do we really want to spend any more time with Starfield? And our honest answers were, not really. So that's why this is not a spoiler discussion with Claylex. This is my own personal thoughts on the game after spending like about 60 hours with it or so. But I didn't want to just not make a video about Starfield, considering this is one of the biggest games of the year. I'm still compelled to come here, make this video explaining my thoughts and why the game lost me. So one of the things with Starfield is that I've seen a lot of videos one way or another regarding Starfield, or a lot of reception. And what's surprising to me about it too is that I'm surprised by how quickly the honeymoon phase for this game seems to have ended. There was maybe about a week or two where like tons and tons of like, high profile reviewers and the most well-known people, the journalists were like really hot on it. And then there kind of came this point where it was like, oh, there's problems with it. The pacing's not very good, and just an assortment of other things. And then it'll like swing in the opposite direction where you see videos talking about how trash the game is, what a garbage dumpster fire it is, and how it makes Bethesda should just give it up entirely. Me, I fall somewhere in the middle. My experience with Starfield has been very strange. And I can kind of break it down into 3 parts, where the first maybe 10 to 15 hours or so of Starfield, I was mostly indifferent to it. I was just kind of like, okay, I was getting a feel for the mechanics and the design of the game, the baffling design of some elements of the game. And then somewhere in the middle is when I started to fall down that typical rabbit hole of side quests that Bethesda is really good at. And then towards the tail end of my time with Starfield, it was just boredom, where I went, okay, what now? Now that the rabbit hole of side quests is coming to an end, what am I going to do now? And not much. I didn't really find anything else all that compelling, and that's why I bounced off the game. And once I had taken a break from the game for a few weeks, I just lost all desire to continue playing it. And I think Starfield's biggest mistake was how it was designed. So, for all the talk of this being Bethesda's biggest game. You explore over 1,000 planets or whatever the fuck Todd Howard said. Ironically, it feels like it's smallest just because of the way it's designed, because of how much, wasted time there is and how you're constantly pulled out of the experience by loading screens and fast traveling and all that. And I apologize if this sounds mean, but their focus on procedurally generated planets is not something I would call ambitious. I would call it a big misallocation of time and resources, because this approach to design for Bethesda removes one of their biggest strengths, in my opinion, which is the ability to pick a direction, walk, and see what weird and fun stuff you can encounter. I've had this experience with Oblivion, had that experience with Fallout 3, I had that experience with Skyrim, and, to a lesser extent, but it was still there, I had that experience with Fallout 4. And, like I said, the other big strength that they have, in my opinion, is still there, which is the rabbit hole of side quests you can tumble down. But again, like I said, once that dried up, I grew tired of Starfield. And what doesn't help either is that the pacing for this game is just all over the place. And for me, it never really hit a steady rhythm or flow. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the onboarding during the first 10 hours or so, if you're following the main story and trying to, get a feel for the gameplay elements and the design, is bad. I think it's a meme at this point to say, well, it gets good after 10 hours. That's pretty much my experience with Starfield. The one exception to that was doing the UC Vanguard side quest up front, because I thought that actually should have been incorporated into the main game, where in that beginning of the faction quest, you're taken through this museum where you get a hint of the lore that's associated with the world. You then are given a flight simulator to work with where you can kind of practice on the ship battling, and then it gives you a little taste of combat. And when I was doing that, I thought to myself, why isn't this mandatory? Because to me, this gives me a much better idea of this world than the main story does. The other thing that Bethesda, I think, really made a mistake was just how it designed exploration. Because exploring these planets is a big disappointment. Because the process of exploring a planet is very slow. There's no vehicle, so it's going to be a lot of boost jumping or walking across these barren wastelands, and you'll see the same procedurally generated buildings, natural settings, and landmarks over and over and over and over again. And that's why it feels so small too, because you keep seeing the same shit over and over and over again. And it really starts to build up in your mind of like, oh, this is not right. Why am I seeing the exact same layout of these different research facilities on like 20 different planets, and the loot is in the exact same places, the enemies are in the exact same places, and that illusion just breaks of this big expansive world. And why Bethesda chose this route instead of focusing on maybe 40 to 50 uniquely designed planets is something I will never understand. I will never understand why Bethesda chose to go this route over a more, handcrafted experience. It totally just flies in the face of what they're most well known for. And speaking of Bethesda, Bethesda were like loud and proud about how this was the most polished game that they had ever made. This is the one with the least amount of bugs. Hooray! That's great. But I still encountered an unusually high number of bugs in this game. Bugs galore from my experience. There were animation bugs, AI bugs, quest bugs. I had to look up on Reddit how to navigate a bug quest. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 times. And the most ridiculous one I saw was there's this mission where you're tasked to go break some rocks for a housing development project, and the rocks don't spawn. And I thought, what the fuck, am I missing something? So when I looked it up, The solution was you had to fast travel to Venus, an entirely different planet, bunch of galaxies away, wait there on Venus for 24 hours, then fly back to the planet with the rocks on it, and then that would get the rocks to spawn. What the fuck? What? And it's really surprising, too, that there's so many bugs, and they chose this approach with these procedurally generated planets, is that this game is just so visually unimpressive to me. I don't get it. I don't get, other than a shitty game engine, why are there so many loading screens and bugs? And it's just, the game just does not look that impressive, both from a raw detail and art direction standpoint. And I am not a fan of this NASA punk thing they have going on. It just looks bland. And you guys know I'm not someone who cares a great deal about graphics if a game is fun, but I would argue this is a case where the poor graphics hinder the game, because one of the big things is that the facial animation is just shockingly poor at times. I was just shocked by how bad the facial animation was at times still. And it creates this complete disconnect from this grand and emotional narrative they're trying to tell when you keep encountering main characters that look like they just had a bunch of Botox injected into their faces, and their eyes just look so soulless and dead. And the part that it really fucked me up the most was when I got married in the game. I married one of my companions, and during the marriage ceremony, when it's supposed to be this wonderful romantic sequence of you getting fucking married, the person I was marrying looked like she couldn't give less of a shit about what was going on. She looked fucking high the whole time, and it just ruined any kind of emotional impact that the marriage sequence could have had. Another thing, too, is that the story is just a complete letdown. Not only is the writing unremarkable, there is this big conflict between what the game is trying to sell me on, character-wise and thematically, versus what I'm actually doing. Because this game casts you in the role as this, explorer that joins this post-war collective of explorers, and let's go out and find the wonders of space, and find these artifacts, and let's see what wonderful things they lead, and what are the big mysteries out there as far as our existence and our place in the universe. But what you're actually going to be doing is murdering hundreds of people, just shotgunning them in the face. Just yay, murdering tons of people in the name of science and discovery. How wonderful. And really, just the only part of the story that impressed me was there's this sequence where you attend a funeral, and it's not just press F to pay respects or any of that shit. It's not a full-on, real world length funeral, but a decently lengthy funeral where you get to meet people that are related to the deceased. There are ramifications for that person dying, and you talk about it with your companions, and they give their own personal view on what death and an afterlife means to them. And you can get up to the podium and make a speech, honoring the person that passed away. And that was the one part of the story that really impressed me. I was really impressed that they actually took the time to write this full funeral sequence, and it's also completely missable. You don't have to attend it in the story. The fact that is missable, but they put so much effort into it, is great. That's what I wanted to see more of in this game. Things like that. What also doesn't help too is that I didn't give two shits about any of the cast. Honestly, if a nuke dropped on these people in the middle of a conversation, I would not care. I would just go, oh good, the game's over. Thank God, they're all dead. And it doesn't help too that your companions, your main companions in the game, do not shut the fuck up when it comes to judging you. They won't stop. There are just so many points where I'll do something that I think is perfectly fine, and then my companion will just be like, well, I didn't like that. I completely disagree with you. It's like, shut up. I didn't give you permission to give me your opinion. I don't care what you think about my decision. Another bit of the story and just the game as a whole is that I think the RPG elements are just so empty. They're just this like big wall of fog that when you finally like poke through it and see how empty it is on the other side, just the illusion of it is just shattered. And what sucks is that very few of your choices really have any real consequences outside of maybe like the end of one faction quest, and then I know that there's like some decisions at the end of the other one that do work out. But other than that, it's like, oh, I'm just going to be the exact same spot as I was, if I had just made a different decision. It's like how Telltale used to do their choice and consequence, where it's like, no matter what you did, you were always brought back on the same railroad, moving forward. It's the exact same railroad track. And I think the point where the illusion shattered for me was during the Ryujin Industries faction quests. They tell you up front, like, oh, you must remain stealthy. You cannot be seen. We have to do this, quietly, and it makes it seem like, ooh, espionage. This is gonna be a cool espionage sneaking thing. And they give you your first mission of like, oh, go and hack into this computer. Go hack. You make sure nobody is seen. You can do things to make sure nobody is seen. I literally just walked into the office building and hacked into the computer in front of like 3 different people watching me. And then I just walked out. So I was seen, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you did great, awesome. We need you to go do that again. Let's go do something else. Go switch out a file in some account." And that's like, "Oh, okay." To test it, I went to go switch that file around, but I murdered somebody. And they specifically said before giving me that mission, "You do not murder people. We do not want to deal with the body bags, the ramifications, the buying off, all that. We don't want to deal with it. We just want you to be a ghost, practically." And I thought, cool, there must be some kind of consequence to me gunning down an innocent civilian in broad daylight before I go and swap out this file that's in this building or whatever. And I went back, and the worst I got was like this slap on the wrist. They were just like, "Oh, we told you not to do that." But still, the bosses are so impressed by what you did that they want to promote you. And I'm like, I literally just gunned down a civilian in broad daylight when you told me not to murder anybody. Not even like, don't murder anybody out in the open. Just don't murder anybody in general. And that meant nothing in the side quest. It just carried on like usual. And once I saw that, I went, oh, it really does not matter. Which sucks, because I love games where the world actually responds to your actions in like really interesting and surprising ways. When they start introducing things like, oh, you can intimidate people, oh, you can persuade people, oh, you can bribe people, it just really feels like fluff designed to somewhat solidify the wall of illusion that they've built up in front of you regarding the RPG elements. So that was really disappointing too. One thing too that I think has like universally gotten shit is the UI, because oh my god, the UI in this game is a complete mess. Every single action in this game takes like 1 or 2 button prompts longer than it should, and the map system, if you were even lucky to get a fucking map, is terrible. And the fact that they don't even give you a competent map to explore your surroundings, like where the fuck to go, is a really baffling design decision. And I hate how the menu, we're still doing this from Skyrim, where they organize the items and the maps like this. It just sucks. It's a complete mess of UI. And the fact that modders, not even a day after the game came out, already went in there and were like, oh, here's a better UI. It just makes me question what the fuck Bethesda were doing at the UI department all this time. Is there anything that I did like about Starfield? Because it just sounds like I'm taking a massive shit on it. But strangely enough, the thing that I enjoyed about Starfield the most from a gameplay perspective is the gunplay, which is not something I thought I would ever say. So this is easily Bethesda's best game from a gameplay standpoint, like the gunplay. People that say the gunplay is only slightly improved from Fallout are lying. It's a big improvement. It feels great. There's real weight and oomph when you're shooting a gun and mowing people down. It's just a shame that the people you're mowing down have the most brain dead AI I've seen in a long time. Another thing too, I did like the ship battles. Those are fun. They're simplistic, but there's a good feeling of joy when you're dogfighting with some enemy ships and then blasting them into oblivion. That I actually got into when I realized, the mechanics of ship battling. That was fun. Unfortunately, one of the big elements of the game, the space powers that you can get, are, for lack of a better word, garbage. And I hated the process of getting them. I hated going up into the eye to talk to the Russian guy who then tells you, oh, we located another spot, comrade, on the map. So you have to go where the map is. You find this same old little temple. You do this terrible fucking mini game where you fly through these like fart bubbles in the air. I'm not fucking kidding, by the way. It's you literally to unlock a power. So in Skyrim, for instance, for the much better Dragon Shouts, you had to like go through a dungeon or find a secret spot or do side quests to find all of the Dragon Shouts, and that was cool. I liked how that was laid out. Why they changed that to just the exact same temples every single time, doing the exact same mini games every single time to get these lame ass fucking powers, I don't know why they did that. I don't know if they just lost time or they needed a quick way of doing it, but it was lame, man. Like those powers are so lame compared to the Dragon Shouts from Skyrim. Look, I know that I said it up front that like, look, I haven't finished the main story. I haven't finished, all the main the side quests or whatever, and I haven't done the new game plus. That I know what the new game plus is, and it's an interesting idea, but from what I've seen, they don't really take it as far as I would hope. So I really have no motivation to try it, honestly. And I've seen where the other faction quests go, and I'm just like, oh, okay, it's either like a lame ending or it's like, okay, you did one bit where it was a little bit of choice and consequence in a game that's lacking choice and consequence. It's like, okay. I mean, if the fact that I didn't finish the main story and I didn't finish all the side quests and didn't do the new game plus or whatever, that discounts my opinion in your eyes, and that's fine. But I'm just coming here and I'm just giving you guys my honest opinion of Starfield. After playing it for 60 hours, I am not happy that I didn't care for Starfield. And despite my reservations about how the game was going to go, I was looking forward to it still. I was cautiously optimistic about it, but when it finally dawned on me that a lot of my initial concerns about a year ago were coming to fruition, I thought, oh, great. And that makes me sad, because Oblivion and Skyrim were titans to me during my middle school and high school years. Oblivion and Skyrim were constant talking points among my core circle of friends back in the day. To this day, I love Oblivion and Skyrim. I don't care what kind of big problems they have. I adore Oblivion and Skyrim. They're like that comfortable old blanket that's like, well worn. It's got some holes in it, but it still makes you comfy. It makes you still feel that warm little vibe that it has. Oblivion and Skyrim are big parts of my gaming history, and there was a time where I really thought Bethesda could do no wrong. Even as early as like this channel existing around the time of Fallout 4. There was a time where I literally were like, Bethesda's doing it the right way. Bethesda is so good. And now I'm just like, all right. And you know what? And maybe they could win me back. Maybe they could win me back with The Elder Scrolls 6. I kind of doubt it, considering they're still going to be using the fucking busted-ass creation engine for that shit, which is really disappointing. That, I hope, will at least have both of the strengths that I associate with Bethesda, instead of just one here. I hope Bethesda never does this again. I hope there is no Starfield 2. I hope they don't do this procedurally generated shit anymore. I hope they don't do this like small areas broken up by loading screens kind of thing again. I really hope they actually push the envelope forward with their next title, because Bethesda have been coasting on their past glories for damn near like over a decade now. Considering this is Bethesda and they have some like weird hubris about this style of game and using the creation engine for God knows what reasons. I hope they do better next time, because Starfield just did not do it for me, and it, like I said, it completely lost me after a point. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about Starfield. And yeah, as always, I'm Razorblade Mango. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all later. Bye.